Imagine risking your life every single day, not for glory, not for adventure, but just to feed your family. In the heart of Africa, on the steep hills and broken roads of Burundi, men ride bicycles stacked higher than themselves, carrying loads that could crush them in an instant. These are not athletes. These are survivors. And this is the story of the world's most dangerous roads. In the small, landlocked nation Burundi, life moves to a rhythm that is both fragile and dangerous. Here, in the very heart of Africa, the bicycle is more than just a vehicle. It is the backbone of survival. For many families, it is the only tool they have to transport goods, to earn money, and to keep food on the table. But on these narrow, twisting mountain roads, it is also a gamble with death. Burundi is one of the smallest countries on the African continent. Yet despite its size, its roads carry a weight of stories. Stories of endurance, of struggle, and of resilience. Whoever wants to transport goods in Burundi almost always does so by bicycle. Trucks exist, yes, but for the poor farmer in the countryside, a truck is a distant dream. A bicycle, even if old and rusting, becomes a lifeline. Distances may seem short, but in this hilly, mountainous land, every kilometer feels like a marathon. And for the men who ride these roads, there's always a dangerous temptation. The trucks that thunder along the highways. It is common to see cyclists clutching onto the back of lorries, dragged uphill at terrifying speeds. It saves energy, yes, but it is often fatal. One wrong movement, one hidden pothole, and a rider can be crushed instantly. The main traffic artery cuts through the nation, winding down from the Rwandan border in the north, weaving its way past hills and villages until it reaches Tanzania in the south. Along this lifeline, goods flow, but so too do risks. Burundi's soil is fertile. The earth, kissed by equatorial rains, produces bananas in abundance. Bananas are not simply a fruit here. They are survival. They are breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They are livestock feed. And, perhaps most importantly, they are the heart of a national tradition, banana beer. In the northern plateau, where the land rises gently into hills, villages are surrounded by sprawling banana groves. Farmers cut the clusters, heavy and golden, and bring them to the edges of towns. Their middlemen wait, buy in bulk to sell again. It is a cycle as old as memory, yet one that continues to define the lives of thousands. Among them is a man named Pamphlet Nagu. Twice a week, he makes his way to the outskirts of Kea, one of the region's busiest trading towns. He is no ordinary farmer. Pamphlet is a brewer, a banana beer brewer. His product is beloved across Burundi, consumed in villages, towns, and roadside inns. His business may seem humble, but for him and his workers, it is life. Pamphlet buys carefully. He chooses 3 varieties of bananas, one sweet, one flowery, and one less ripe. He knows that the mixture is key. Too much of one type, and the flavor collapses. His hands move with the precision of a craftsman who has perfected his trade over decades. For him, brewing is not just work. It is an inheritance, a way of life, and a responsibility. But Pamphlet does not transport the bananas himself. Even he, a man familiar with hardship, admits that the road is too dangerous. Instead, he relies on men like Tajan, bicycle couriers who strap impossible loads onto their bikes and push, pull, and ride them across grueling terrain. Tajan is just 22 years old. He has never been to school. He cannot read or write. Yet on these roads, his strength and balance make him invaluable. He supports a wife and 2 children with his meager earnings, though his dream of saving money seems distant. For him, the bicycle is both a blessing and a curse. This job holds no future, he admits. It is just enough to keep my family alive. Nothing more. On this day, Tajan straps 8 massive banana clusters to his bike. Together they weigh around 160 kilos, nearly 3 times his own body weight. At first, he enjoys a downhill stretch, coasting with the load. But soon, the terrain changes. A long ascent rises before him. His muscles burn. Sweat pours down his face. Every push of the pedal feels like moving a mountain. He gasps for breath, but he cannot stop. The beer brewer is waiting. This is the daily grind in Burundi. Men in their 20s grow old before their time. The work is unrelenting. Yet, for many, there is no other choice. Meanwhile, Pamphlet prepares his brewery. On his small farm, next to his home, he has dug pits where bananas are left to ripen. They must develop enough sweetness for fermentation, or the beer will fail. His family and a few neighbors help in the process. Together, they crush the bananas, often using clean hay to extract the liquid. The hay itself imparts a subtle, earthy flavor, giving Pamphlet's beer its unique taste. The liquid is stored for days, yeast transforming it into alcohol. No one here measures percentages. It is strong enough to make a man dizzy after a few bottles. And that is enough. For many villagers, this beer is more than drink. It is social glue. It binds families, friendships, and communities. But beyond the breweries and villages, the road continues. Trucks rumble past, carrying goods to and from Rwanda and Tanzania. Drivers like Antoine Kabura, who has spent a decade behind the wheel, know the risks well. The roads are narrow, sometimes less than 6 meters wide. Potholes gape like open mouths. Blind curves twist suddenly. And always there are cyclists clinging to the backs of lorries, darting in and out of traffic, their lives hanging by a thread. Kabura shakes his head at the madness. It is lethal, he says, not only for them, but for us drivers too. He has seen men fall, crushed in his rearview mirror. The rules prohibit it, but desperation overrules the law. For the cyclists, the choice is simple: risk death or face exhaustion that their bodies cannot endure. The dangers are not only on the asphalt. Beyond the road, Burundi's history weighs heavily. This is a country scarred by civil war, where traditions and survival have been reshaped by conflict. In villages, drummers still gather, keeping alive the rhythms once reserved for kings. Their drums echo through the valleys, reminders of heritage that war could not erase. And along the roadsides, entire communities struggle. The Batwa people, once forest dwellers, have been relocated to roadside villages. They carve wood, make pottery, and sell to travelers. Life has changed, but survival remains the same battle. As the sun rises over Burundi, the cyclists are already on the move. Loads of bananas, palm oil, rice, and firewood strapped to their carriers. They ride through rain and heat, past markets and checkpoints. Some will reach their destinations, some will not. And in the capital Bujumbura, markets overflow with goods brought in on 2 wheels. Women like Alisaya, who lost everything when the main market burned in 2013, rebuild their livelihood stall by stall. They rely on men like Eric, another bicycle courier, who braves the journey again and again. For him, each delivery earns barely enough to survive, yet the city depends on him. The countryside depends on him. Burundi itself depends on men like him. Bujumbura, sitting at the edge of Lake Tanganyika, is a city that never truly sleeps. Its heartbeat comes not only from the official buildings, the bustling bus stations, or the sound of motorbikes weaving through traffic, but from the thousands of men who arrive every day on bicycles. They come from the mountains, from dusty villages, from valleys where roads are little more than tracks. Each man has pushed, pulled, and ridden his way across impossible distances, balancing loads that would crush an untrained body. And yet, here they are, entering the capital at dawn with bananas, beans, cassava, and charcoal tied to their bikes. For them, Bujumbura is not a city of opportunity, but of transaction. They will not rest long. The goods must be delivered, payments collected, and then the long, punishing journey back to the countryside begins. One of these men is Eric, whose story echoes of thousands like him. He wakes before the roosters, ties his shoes with worn-out laces, and checks his bicycle, his only real possession of value. It is not much. The chain slips, the brakes scream, and the tires are patched with old rubber. But to him, it is life. Without this machine, his family would starve. Eric straps his load carefully. Bananas, tied into massive clusters, weigh nearly as much as a man. Firewood bundles, lashed together with rope, rise taller than he does. Once balanced, he begins his descent into the city. Downhill, it feels almost effortless. The air rushing past his face, the illusion of speed and freedom. But he knows what comes after. The climb back will be brutal. In Bujumbura's chaotic markets, women like Alisaya wait for men like Eric. Alice once had a large stall in the city's main market. She sold clothes, household goods, and food. It was her pride, her source of dignity. But in 2013, a massive fire tore through the market. Flames devoured everything. Thousands of traders like her were ruined overnight. Alice had to start again from zero. Today, she sits by a roadside, selling vegetables under a patch of shade. She relies on bicycle couriers to bring her goods from the countryside. Without them, she cannot feed her children. She pays what little she can, knowing that the men on bicycles earn barely enough to survive. For Eric, each trip into Bujumbura is a battle against exhaustion. His earnings are swallowed quickly by food, rent, and school fees for his children. He dreams of something better, perhaps a motorcycle, perhaps a shop of his own. But the road keeps pulling him back. As the day stretches on, the city's traffic grows heavier. Trucks roar through narrow streets, their horns blaring. Motorcycles dart between them. And always, bicycles weave dangerously among the chaos, carrying loads that look impossible. The men's eyes are sharp, scanning for potholes, for sudden movements, for any mistake that could end their lives in an instant. On the edge of the city, another group waits. The Batwa people, once forest dwellers, hunters, and gatherers. They were driven from their ancestral lands. Now, they live in fragile huts near the roadside, surviving on crafts and small sails. The men carve wooden spoons, the women shape pottery, and the children beg from passing travelers. The road that sustains Burundi's economy has also become the Batwa's last refuge. But not all stories are despair. There's also pride, endurance, and even joy. Burundi's drummers, for example, are famous across Africa. Once, their massive wooden drums were played only for kings. Today, they echo in villages and cities alike, symbols of unity and tradition. When the drums sound, the hardships of the road momentarily fade. People dance, children laugh, and for a few moments, life feels larger than the struggles of the day. Yet the road always calls them back. For the truck drivers like Antoine Kabura, the road is both a livelihood and a curse. He has spent a decade behind the wheel, driving goods between Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. He knows every curve, every dangerous slope. He knows the exact spots where cyclists cling to his trailer, hoping for a free ride. He knows how quickly joy can turn to disaster. Kabura has seen death in his rearview mirror. He remembers a cyclist who slipped under his wheels on a rainy afternoon. He remembers a young boy who tried to grab hold but lost his grip on a sharp bend. These memories haunt him. He is a professional driver, but he cannot control desperation. For the cyclist, the calculation is cruel. To cling to a truck is to risk death, but to climb every hill under the weight of hundreds of kilos is almost impossible. So they gamble. Some win, some lose. Even those who survive carry the scars. Knees ache by the age of 30. Backs bend prematurely. Hands shake with exhaustion. Lives shorten. And still, tomorrow they will ride again. Burundi's dangerous roads are not simply asphalt and potholes. They are a mirror of the nation itself. Fragile, scarred, yet enduring. Every banana cluster, every sack of cassava, every bundle of firewood strapped to a bicycle tells the story of survival. Every face, from the brewer pamphlet Naagu to the courier Tajan, from the market woman Alice to the driver Kabura, carries the weight of a country that fights daily just to keep moving forward. And above them all, the hills rise, the roads twist, and the future remains uncertain. The road in Burundi is not just a strip of asphalt. For many, it is a destiny. Each cyclist who sets out in the early morning carries more than just a load. He carries the burden of his family's survival. Behind every bicycle wobbling under the weight of bananas or firewood lies a story of mouths to feed, school fees to pay, and hopes they're often too heavy to carry. Take Jean-Claude, a father of four from the hills above Ngozi. His bicycle is nearly 20 years old, patched together with mismatched parts. The brakes no longer function properly, so when he descends along winding slopes, he drags his feet against the ground to slow down. His legs are scarred from countless falls. Yet every week, he makes the same journey, hauling 120 kilos of beans into town. For Jean-Claude, stopping is not an option. If he misses even one delivery, his children might go without food. His oldest daughter dreams of becoming a nurse, but her school fees depend on her father's endless peddling. Every coin he earns on the road is already spent before it reaches his pocket. Then there is Simon, a boy of just 17. Too young, some say, to be carrying such loads, but necessity ignores age. His father was injured in an accident on the very same road. A truck sideswiped him, leaving him unable to walk properly. Now Simon has become the family's breadwinner. With his thin frame and determined eyes, he pushes loads that weigh more than he does. "I don't have a choice," he says quietly. "If I stop, my family has nothing." This is a cruel reality of Burundi's dangerous roads. They are built on the sacrifice of the poor. But the roads are not just about survival. They are also arteries of trade and connection. Along the way, there are roadside markets buzzing with life. Women spread mats on the ground, selling cassava flour, roasted maize, and bundles of vegetables. Children run between the stalls, carrying jugs of water or chasing after chickens. These markets are vibrant, colorful, a reminder that even in hardship, life continues with energy and laughter. And yet, danger is never far away. At any moment, a truck might lose control on a downhill curve. Cyclists might collide while racing for space on the narrow shoulder. Rain can turn the surface into a slick trap, where even the strongest riders fall. Still, people adapt. They have to. The bicycle, fragile as it is, has become a symbol of Burundian resilience. Men customize them with wooden supports, metal braces, and ropes. Some even decorate them with colorful ribbons or painted names, giving the machine a personality, almost as if it were a trusted companion on the road. In some ways, the bicycles carry more than just goods. They carry identity. In villages, boys dream of one day owning their own, not as a toy, but as a passport to manhood. Owning a bicycle means you can contribute, you can provide, you can be counted among the men who keep the community alive. But the deeper story of these roads cannot be told without touching on Burundi's past. This is a nation that has endured civil war, political instability, and poverty for decades. Every scar on the land, every burned building, every family torn apart is a reminder of that history. And yet, despite the hardship, the people continue. They ride, they build, they endure. The resilience of the Burundian people is perhaps most visible during celebrations. Weddings, for example, are filled with music and dance. Despite the poverty, the famous Burundian drummers take their places, pounding rhythms that shake the ground and echo through the hills. These drums, carved from hollowed tree trunks and topped with animal skins, are not just instruments. They are symbols of unity and pride, carried from the past into the present. Even along the most dangerous stretches of road, music can be heard. Radios crackle with songs. Cyclists hum as they push uphill. Villagers sing while harvesting bananas. It is as though music itself helps them endure the suffering. Still, every day brings new challenges. The price of food rises, the weight of loads increases, and the road grows no safer. The men who ride know that their bodies will give out one day. Knees will fail, backs will break. But they keep going because stopping is not an option. In the evenings, after long journeys, cyclists gather at small roadside inns. They drink banana beer, share stories of near accidents, and laugh in the face of exhaustion. These moments of camaraderie are precious, a brief escape before another dawn, another load, another battle with the road. And always there is the question, how long can it go on like this? Burundi's roads are more than just pathways of trade. They are the fragile stage where life, death, survival, and hope all play out. Each curve, each climb, each descent tells a story of a nation that struggles daily but refuses to stop moving forward. Every road in Burundi is more than a path of asphalt. It is a record of history. The cracks and potholes do not just appear from weather. They are the scars of neglect, the echoes of wars that tore the nation apart, and the weight of endless traffic trying to survive on fragile infrastructure. For the cyclists who dominate these roads, the past is always present. Many of the older riders remember the years of conflict, when traveling from one village to another meant risking ambush. Roads that now carry bananas and cassava once carried soldiers and weapons. The memories of burned trucks and empty markets still linger in conversations by roadside fires. But despite this past, life has returned to the roads. Trade flows once again, not smoothly but persistently. And at the center of it all is the bicycle, a tool that outlives politics, outlives governments, and remains loyal only to the people who ride it. Take Diudon, an elder cyclist in his 50s, who has spent nearly 3 decades on the roads. His hair has turned gray, his hands are calloused, and his knees ache with every step. But he keeps going. "I have no choice," he says simply. His children are grown now, but grandchildren have taken their place. They need food, school clothes. The road has become his inheritance, and unwillingly, the inheritance of his family. When Diudon talks about the old days, his voice carries both pride and sadness. He recalls a time when cycling was not only work, but also sport. Burundi has produced racing cyclists, men who trained on these very hills, turning hardship into strength. Some competed in international races, showing the world the endurance forged on Burundi's treacherous slopes. But for most, the dream of sports glory never arrives. The bicycle remains a beast of burden, not a ticket to fame. The irony is striking. On the same roads where men risk their lives for survival, others have dreamed of Olympic medals. The boundary between heroism and hardship is as thin as the worn-out tires on their bikes. Further along the roads, the villages tell their own stories. In one hamlet, a mother named Claudine tends to her small farm. Her husband is a cyclist, often gone for long hours, sometimes days. She is left to manage the household, the children, and the fields. For her, every time her husband leaves with a heavy load, there is fear in her heart. She has seen too many women widowed by road accidents. She whispers prayers for his return, and when he does return exhausted and bruised, she welcomes him not with complaints, but with relief. In these homes, resilience is not just in the men who ride, but in the women who wait, the children who help carry bananas to the roadside, and the neighbors who share food when times are tough. The road connects them all, but the road also divides. For the wealthy few who can afford cars, the journey is faster, safer, and more comfortable. They drive past the cyclists, sometimes with pity, sometimes with indifference. 2 Burundis pass each other on the same strip of asphalt, one struggling to survive, the other shielded by privilege. The government knows the dangers. Officials speak of repairing roads, of building safer highways, of offering support to farmers and traders. But the promises often fade with time. The reality remains. For the poor, the bicycle is the only transport they will ever know. Even in the capital, Bujumbura, the divisions are clear. Markets overflow with goods. But behind every sack of beans and every bundle of firewood is a cyclist who risked his life to bring it there. City dwellers often forget this chain of survival. They see the product, not the journey. They taste a banana beer, not the sweat that carried the bananas down from the hills. The beer itself tells its own story. At gatherings, men sit together, drinking from shared gourds, laughing loudly. Banana beer flows, stories are told, and for a while, life feels lighter. Yet even here, the bicycle is present. Without the riders who bring bananas to the brewers, the beer would not exist. It is a cycle of labor, community, and tradition. At times, the roads are almost festive. When cyclists travel in groups, they form long caravans, like processions. From a distance, it looks like a river of bicycles flowing through the hills. There is chatter, jokes, and even songs. But beneath the laughter is always the awareness of risk. One wrong move, one stumble, and joy can turn to tragedy. Accidents are common. Villagers speak of men crushed under trucks, of young boys losing their lives while trying to cling on to passing lorries, of fathers who never returned. These stories are told not with shock anymore, but with weary acceptance. Death on the road has become part of life. And yet, the next morning, the bicycles roll out again. Burundi's dangerous roads are not simply about transport. They are about identity, culture, and endurance. They reveal the harsh reality of a nation where poverty forces men to risk their lives every day, but also where resilience transforms hardship into survival. The road is unforgiving, but it is also unifying. From the banana groves of Ngozi to the bustling stalls of Bujumbura, from the drummer's rhythms to the brewer's pits, everything flows along the same narrow paths. The question is not whether the roads are dangerous. Everyone knows they are. The real question is how long the people of Burundi can continue to carry such a burden. The roads of Burundi are like veins running through a fragile body, keeping the nation alive but always under strain. And just like veins, they can clog, collapse, or burst at any moment. Yet they are essential. Without them, there is no trade, no food reaching cities, no survival. Every cyclist, every truck, every pedestrian is part of this endless flow. But what makes these roads so symbolic is not just the danger, it is the resilience of the people who travel them. Burundi is one of the poorest countries in the world. Decades of civil war, political instability, and a lack of resources have left deep scars. Infrastructure has lagged far behind population growth. Many roads are still unpaved, carved only from mud and gravel, easily washed away by the heavy rains of the equatorial climate. When the downpours arrive, hillsides collapse, bridges crumble, and cyclists are forced to carry their loads through rivers and ravines. But poverty does not erase creativity. On the contrary, it sharpens it. Farmers and traders adapt in ways that seem impossible to outsiders. A bicycle meant to carry one rider becomes a platform for carrying 150 kilos of bananas. A road that would terrify professional drivers in developed countries becomes a daily workplace for boys barely in their teens. This is the ingenuity of survival. The economy of Burundi rests heavily on agriculture. Over 80% of the population depends on farming for their livelihood. Bananas, beans, maize, and cassava are the staples. But the challenge is always the same: how to get crops from remote farms to markets. Trucks are too expensive, fuel is a luxury, and roads are unreliable. So the bicycle becomes a bridge between the fields and the stalls. And with that bridge comes danger. The cyclists often travel in convoys. It is safer in a way. One rider can warn another of potholes, of police checkpoints, of approaching trucks. But convoys also create their own risks. On narrow roads with no shoulders, a group of bicycles becomes a moving obstacle for cars and lorries. Drivers swerve, honk, and curse. Sometimes they lose patience, and accidents happen. The statistics of road deaths in Burundi are grim. But behind each number is a face, a family, a story. A father who will not return home. A child who will never see adulthood. A widow who must now depend on neighbors for survival. Each death ripples outward, affecting not just one family but entire communities. Yet still, the bicycle rolls on. To understand why, one must look deeper into the culture of endurance in Burundi. It is a culture shaped by hardship, yes, but also by hope. The Burundian people have survived wars that destroyed villages, famines that emptied stomachs, and political crises that tore apart communities. Through it all, they have learned one lesson above all others: you cannot stop moving. This lesson is written into the very rhythm of daily life. Children walk miles to school barefoot through rain and dust. Women carry jugs of water on their heads from wells and rivers far from home. Farmers bend over fields for endless hours, their hands blistered, their backs aching, but never pausing. And the men on bicycles push and push, because to stop is to surrender to poverty. Even celebrations reflect this spirit of motion. When the famous Burundian drummers perform, the entire body is in motion. They leap, spin, and pound rhythms that seem to shake the earth itself. Each strike of the drum is both a call to tradition and a defiance of hardship. It is as if the very act of drumming says, "We are still here, we are still alive, and we will not stop." But there is also another layer to these roads, one that is less visible but equally important: the political and economic struggle that keeps them dangerous. Burundi has limited resources to invest in infrastructure. Corruption, mismanagement, and lack of funds mean that roads are often left to decay. International aid comes in waves, but it is never enough to transform the system. And so, the dangerous roads remain year after year, generation after generation. For the cyclists, these realities are distant, almost irrelevant. They cannot wait for governments to repair roads or for aid agencies to intervene. They must live day by day, ride by ride, But deep down, they know that the danger is not just in the potholes and trucks. It is in the system that leave them no alternative. The system forces a young man like Simon, barely 17, to risk his life on a road meant for vehicles 3 times his size. The system forces men like Jean-Claude to ride bicycles with no brakes because spare parts are too expensive. The system forces widows like Claudine to watch helplessly as their husbands gamble with death for a handful of coins. And yet, in the face of this injustice, the resilience of the Burundian people becomes even more remarkable. They ride not because they are reckless, but because they are courageous. They push forward not because they are blind to the risks, but because they are determined to feed their families. The dangerous roads of Burundi are, in truth, roads of survival. Every rider, every farmer, every trader, every truck driver is part of a living chain, fragile but unbroken. The country survives not because it is easy, but because its people refuse to give up. But perhaps the most remarkable truth about Burundi's dangerous roads is this. They are not just roads of danger, they are roads of determination. Every morning, as the mist rises over the hills and the sun begins to cut through the haze, the cyclists prepare themselves once again. Their bicycles are battered, their clothes are worn, and their bodies ache from yesterday's journey. Yet they push forward because the road is more than a workplace. It is survival. And on these same roads, farmers carry dreams on their backs, women balance futures on their heads, and children walk towards uncertain tomorrows. The road is the thread that stitches together the life of this nation. It is harsh, unforgiving, and dangerous, but it is also alive with resilience. When you look at Burundi's roads, you see more than just asphalt and dust. You see history carved into every curve. You see poverty, yes, but you also see courage. You see men who risk everything for a few coins, women who endure endless sacrifice, and children who grow up far too quickly. You see a country that refuses to stop moving forward, no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how dangerous the path. This is Burundi, a land of hills, of struggle, of strength, a country where every journey is a gamble with fate, but also a declaration of life. The roads may be dangerous, but they are also proof of the unbreakable spirit of its people. And so, the story of these roads continues. Tomorrow, the bicycles will roll out again. Tomorrow, the hills will once more echo with the sound of chains, the laughter of traders, and the determination of men and women who refuse to give in. Tomorrow, danger will still be there, but so will hope, because in the end, the most dangerous roads are not just traveled by wheels and feet. They are traveled by courage, by resilience, and by the endless will to survive. If this story touched you, let us know what you think. Write your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories from around the world. Your support helps us bring you closer to the lives, struggles, and triumphs of people you might never meet, but whose stories deserve to be told.